Hello and welcome back to Marvel Puzzle Quest with me, P.I. McLeod. Hey, John. Wow, you're really in here today, aren't you? Let's get this. Honestly, today, this session is about nothing more than 2015. I want to talk about the 4-star characters in here and the 5 stars as well, although you might have caught that I have a 5-star short featured out there now that kind of briefly touches on Silver Surfer, Phoenix, and Old Man Logan. But more importantly, I got back from Cooperstown. Oh, nice. I just got off of work early, but that's because I had to drive an hour and a half one way. So about 3 hours of driving for me. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. We're out of work. Yeah, done with driving for the day. Okay, so here's 2015 Marvel Puzzle Quest, and let's go into a fight, not to have the fight per se, because the fight's going to be kind of boring. I mean, every fight in 2015, if you're at this level, is all about these three guys. Old Man Logan, Silver Surfer, Phoenix. Not necessarily in that order, mind you. But if you have these three characters, if you have any single one of them champed, you're probably, your MMR, I'm not going to go into what all that means, but you're probably facing a lot of 5-star champs if you have just one of them champed, okay? But, real quick, I mean, I guess just to touch on it, to say I touched on it, lots of regen, makes strikes. If you pop his claws with his black, he's going to do a lot of damage with all three of his colors. Red, yellow, and black do a ton of damage with him. He's actually pretty darn good at damage output, and before you pop his claws, his regen is on point. It makes him sound really good, but honestly, there's other ways to put out more damage faster nowadays. It's just class 2015, this is what he did. These things got boring quick. Yes, you're right, John. They did. Phoenix is the mother of revivals, or self-revivals, that is. She was the first one to ever have such a capacity in the game, and rightfully so. She's the Phoenix. Like, come on. Her red does, has damage, makes strike tiles. If you have too many friendly special tiles out there, she'll make some enemy attack tiles as well. Because the Phoenix don't care. The Phoenix will hit you as well, even if you're a friend. Psychic Rapport is good for match 5s. It passively improves friendly tiles and reduces enemy tiles by a good amount as well. But I guess more importantly is really the fact that it costs 7 purple and you can make 7 random reds out of it. It's really good for cascades and having some fun with on the board for red generation. Finally, this From the Ashes. It's the passive. She can revive with this with a 1-turn red countdown tile that revives her with 60% of her health. And it can even fire even if she's stunned. So it's kind of cool in that regard. Like, even if she's stunned and you kill her, she can still come back. No big deal. Yeah, I know. I kind of hate how she makes enemy tiles as well, John. I feel like it's not necessary in this day and age. They could kind of buff her and by taking that away, and no one would really bat their eye. Phoenix Force is really good, though. So only after she revives does this come out. So she can only revive once, mind you. But once you get Phoenix Force out, it costs 8 green and does a bunch of damage to the enemy team. Now, mind you, she's kind of God boosted right now, so this number is highly inflated. But still, it does a lot of damage for only 8 green, and it does some damage to your teammates. That kind of sucks. But hey, if one of your teammates is Old Man Logan, he can take it. He can regen it back. So Phoenix is cool for that because, remember, self-revival means people aren't going to hit her until they hit her last. In other words, if she's on your team, in PvP purposes, they will not hit her first because there's no reason to down her early if she's just going to come right back. Finally, Silver Surfer. He's kind of meant to be a tank nowadays. He still doesn't have the stats to be a current tank with all the characters we have coming out, but his blue is a self-healing. It stores a lot of health, if you could see here, for only 6 blue, and makes chosen color, random amount of chosen color, into charge tiles. He also can't be stunned, ever. So yeah, enemy Chasm out there on the board. Silver Surfer says, nah, I'm not going to be stunned. No, thank you. So really handy in those regards. His red is just a pew-pew, it's just a damaging hit, makes some charge tiles, nothing really that special. Doesn't make a lot of charge tiles either. It's decent for the 7 cost though. But here's where the bread and butter is. His black. Silver Singularity. Basically makes a black hole. It's a 3-turn countdown, and it's a special countdown. It doesn't move. It sits still. You can destroy it with a match 4 or higher. Or you can like punch it out with special moves, like Rogue's Red can do it. But yeah, this Silver Singularity, it used to cost 14, by the way, back in the day. And it used to not do the following. When it reaches 0, the black hole collapses and downs the enemy, blocking any revive effects. So nowadays, you could be like, oh, hey, Phoenix, I'm going to use Silver Singularity on you. And eventually the countdown goes down, and then it sucks her in, and she's dead, and she can't come back. Before the buff where this happened, it would cost 14, and it would just do damage upon collapsing, and she'd still be there. Even if she died from it, she'd still be there because she would come back to life. So yeah, this ability got a major buff in his recent updates, and I say recent, but I don't think it's that recent. But anyways, really important ability for Silver Surfer is Silver Singularity. It's a good way to get rid of Chasm, Immortal Hulk, She-Hulk, or any other character that doesn't want to die off of one hit like a decent person would. What was that, John? This was his first usable 5-star. Fond memories of using him extensively when first getting into 5-star land. You know, I wish I had those memories. My first good 5-star was Captain Marvel, and that was not a good 5-star. We'll get to that in another video, probably when she comes out, though. When her class is featured, I guess I should say. Let's go over the 4s. Let's see. Should I just go over them in like a sort of order of sort? I don't know. Probably not. By name? Let's go with name. Yeah, 4 stars by name. That sounds good. I'm not going to hit Carnage first because he's cutting in line. First up, Ant-Man. Ant-Man was an early 4-star. I think he's going to be featured pretty soon here with the Class of series. And he was made to basically be a tile manipulator. Special, like strikes, attacks, protects. His blue allows you to steal them pretty easily. His yellow could make strike tiles consistently and very well. His purple makes attack tiles. He doesn't really make any protect tiles himself, but his blue can steal them. And he was good at these things, but the problem is that you had to wait to get them out there. His purple made a trap tile, and that trap tile creates more attack tiles. And that's all it is to it. So in other words, if you match that trap or overwrote that trap on accident, if the enemy did it, whatever, you get nothing. So nowadays they added this swarm effect to it. And his most recent buff has these passives added on here. So at the start of the turn, for each purple swarm tile on the board, you get 3 strength purple attack tiles. And when you use this, he becomes grow. So while it's out there, you could use purple again for an increased cost, of course. But he removes his blue and purple swarm tiles and does a bunch of damage. And then he goes back to his normal form. Same thing with small time crooks. He can, it turns into grow and does like a very similar effect. A lot of damage, removes blue and purple swarm tile effects. His blue does steal things and creates a locked swarm tile. Ants is a little different. It doesn't have that sort of grow feature to it. Instead, it's just they make strike tiles, and at the beginning of each turn, you deal damage for each red swarm tile out there. So, and it's pretty easy to make red swarm tiles. So nowadays, he's really good at just constantly doing something to F with people's attack, strike, and protect tiles. Unfortunately, you need some AP to put them out on the board. So take it for what it's worth. What was that? She was like 4 or 5 for me with Black Panther coming along at the same time. I see. I get what you're saying. Yeah, for you talking about Captain Marvel back then, John. That's right. Okay. Sorry, I was just catching up on the conversation. My bad. So nowadays, would I use Ant-Man if I'm going to talk like where I would place them in my hierarchy? No. There's many other characters out there that would be good for strike, attack, protect usage. In this setting of characters for 2015, Amongst these peoples, I'd probably rank him pretty low. Because he's not doing really much of anything without the AP to feed it, and even then, he's not doing much of anything unless those tiles get rolling. He needs his swarm tiles to get out there and start rolling to make effects before they even get anything out of them. So, I wouldn't really put a lot of money into Ant-Man, but that's just me saying my piece. Next up, Cyclops. I would rate him a lot higher, and here's why. If you know Cyclops, you know Scott Summers, his red is all about damage, and it should be. Optic blasts, and I'm just speaking old games here, but he just deals damage, destroys a chosen basic tile. I'll learn how to speak one day. If you have 10 or more team up, he gets rid of that 10 or more that 10 team up, deals a bunch more damage, and kills the row. Why is this important? Honestly, it's just because it's so much damage for a 4-star character right here in this ability. Why is that important? Because his other 2 feed it. This yellow is only 5, and if you pump it below 5, which you can, up to you, he'll generate 4 extra AP in the team's strongest color. By the way, his is red, obviously, and increase the duration of those tiles by 2. Even if you have it at level 3, matching a team up gets you 3 more red AP and increase the duration of this countdown. Basically, it's another source of red AP right here built in. Obviously, you could use this for other characters' purposes if you have a different strongest color on your team, but it's very handy to have. And then there's this blue. For 8 blue, you can select a 5x5 area. It gets rid of all red basic strikes, attacks, and protects in that area. Doesn't matter if they're friendly or enemy, by the way. And you get the AP for them, and you do damage. I rate Cyclops pretty darn high in the 4-star category of 2015 because of the fact that his yellow and his blue both feed his red, which does massive damage in the 4-star game. So, if you have to use a 4-star character, Cyclops is pretty darn good. Next up would be... probably should go back over here. I missed Carnage, didn't I? He should come next. Well, we're still in the C's, right? Let's do this. Carnage I would rate pretty high as well, if only because he's got a very unique utility. His red is probably his lowest ranking ability, in my opinion. Even if I pump it up to 5, it does really good damage to the target, 20k, right, for 7 red, but it also deals a little bit of damage, like below over, like 7,000 damage to all other enemies. But it also deals damage to your teammates unless you have 10 red or more. In other words, if you have 10 red or more, which is where you should cast it, then you'll do that damage without hurting your teammates. I wouldn't use it at 7 unless it's the move that's going to win the game for you. Anyways, I keep it at 3 because I try not to use his red. I try to use other characters' reds. And plus, Psych works well in Puzzle Gauntlet. That is true. I guess I'm not thinking about Puzzle Gauntlet. I'm thinking more about this 2015 class as a whole. That's just kind of my current thought process, but I guess we could talk about it in other ways too. I'm going to skip right down to the green because it'll make more sense for black once we hit it. Green costs only 8, and I put up to 5 because honestly it's the damage for me. 16 random tiles dealing an additional 2,678 damage, obviously at this level, right, for each special tile destroyed. There could be a lot of tiles out there, and may I remind you that the max amount of tiles on the board is 64. There's 64 tiles out there in this 8x8 grid, right? 16 is a quarter of that. You're destroying a quarter of the board, and you can deal 2.5k damage for each special tile destroyed. It's pretty easy to get special tiles out there on the board. So, especially when your black is Alien Instincts. At level 5, well actually at level 4 and 5 to be quite fair, you make friendly attack tiles and enemy attack tiles. The enemy attack tiles are always weaker. Honestly, I could put this down to 4. I don't know why I haven't yet. But yeah, you get 6 tiles out there on the board, 3 friendly, 3 enemy every turn. The only time it stops is if there are 10 or more friendly tiles is when it stops. Because you see that wording, if there are fewer than 10 friendly, he does this. Okay. So once you get to 10 or more friendly tiles on the board, then he stops doing it. But he'll go right back to making them again once you match some of the friendly ones away. Constantly making special tiles is really good, especially when we're talking about characters like, I don't know, Ant-Man, or using his green ability to destroy special tiles. Or, I don't know, if you're talking current day gaming like Polaris or Medusa or other characters that love special tiles. Is there anyone here that goes well with him? Ooh, I'd say, man, wait till you do Mr. Fantastic, and then you'll see why I would put them together in a heartbeat. Anyone else come to mind? Not necessarily. Not offhand. Not yet, maybe. Okay, let's move on. Oh, no. That's no problem, John, about going off topic. You know, I'm the king of going off topic so far, I think. How many times have you guys derailed my train of thoughts by saying, hey, who does such and such? And I'm like, let me go down memory lane so I can do that. Okay. Next up is Deadpool. I kind of forgot that he came out so long ago. I feel like he would have been like the year after. But anyways, that's what he really looks like. But, you know, you got the costume, you got to use it. Anyways, he's got his red, his purple, his black. People really use him more for his black than anything else. But why would I have his black at 3? Isn't that crazy? It's because it's about the black countdown tile. Not so much the damage it does. That's just my take on it. You can use it however you want, but Puck derails things as well. Yes, he does. So when an ally of his takes X amount of damage, which in this case is a little over 5k, he makes a 1-turn black countdown tile that deals almost 13k damage back, and that's at level 5. At level 3, it's a little over 5k. But it's the 1-turn countdown tile for me. You can mix match that with so many other people that say, hey, when a countdown tile expires, you get X, Y, and Z. So like 5-star Hawkeye says, hey, when a countdown tile expires, you get, what was it, 2 red and 2 blue? Something like that, if I remember correctly. Or Drax, when a friendly countdown expires, you do X amount of damage to the enemy. Or Captain Marvel, when a friendly countdown expires, 3 special tiles get buffed by like 500. It's kind of a crazy amount. Or Coulson, when a friendly countdown expires, you get 2 random AP. You can see where I'm going. There's a lot of different people that benefit from this. And it's definitely abusable. Especially when you have people like iHulk, you know, Immortal Hulk on the 5-star range, doing a team hit. Well, if each one of your teammates took 5,000 more damage, you're making 2 of these countdowns, which is so abusable. Anyways, his other ones aren't bad. His purple is probably the most useful next one. It's 7 purple, but you get 6. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is 6. I'm sorry, I was reading it wrong there for a minute. 6 5-turn countdowns on the enemy team's strongest color. So if the strongest color is yellow for the enemy, right? There'll be 6 yellow countdown tiles. Excuse me, I had to take a drink. And they don't do anything, as it says there in bold. But if they get destroyed, and that means matched or destroyed, anything happens to them besides being removed, I think the only way you can get around it is with the wording removed. If something is removed, it's not really destroyed. Anyways, each one does like a bunch of damage to the other team. That's a lot of damage for 7 purple. 6 times that. I mean, you're looking at like over 30,000 damage potentially because you cast this ability. Really good when you mix it with board shakers like 4-star Wolverine. Finally, his red is probably the least useful one because it's so expensive, but it is really strong when it hits. 13 red gets you 30,000 damage almost, and a good healing, 17k. So I wouldn't look down upon it, but it is his least shiny ability out of the 3. Would I rate him higher or lower than certain other characters? Honestly, for me, I think he's more of a character that joins other people because of his countdown usage. He can protect people very well. He's like he's like a distraction. Like if you want Iron Man to do his thing, but not get killed over it, you can put Deadpool in there because now the enemy's going to want to focus on Deadpool first because they don't want to get clapped back. So it's a nice distraction character. So I'd say he's not as strong as like Cyclops is, but at the same time he's definitely more useful for utility purposes. We move on to Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is meh. I'd say middle tier if I had to be generous. His green and his red are okay. It's really about his black. I'm gonna just coast through his green and red real quick. The green just does damage to the enemy team, creates some attack tiles, costs less for each friendly attack tile on the board. Meh. It's pretty expensive for what it does, really. His red, damage to the enemy target, plus additional damage if the target's a villain. So in other words, it's conditional damage, which is usually never that great, because then it only works sometimes, right? And then get a repeater tile that spreads fire every turn, making attack tiles. That's okay too. Really, it's about the black. Pen and Stare. It costs 10, which is a little pricey. Deals damage to the target enemy equal to 2,000. Wow, that would be crazy broken. 200% of the total amount of damage they've dealt so far this mission. That's really amazing. If you think about the fact that there are characters out here that can heal, that can protect, that can whatever else, Ghost Rider can stand up for a while. And then Pen and Stare is just going to deal a whole bunch of damage back to somebody. So like if enemy Cyclops, decides to optic blast someone into next year, as long as Ghost Rider's still standing somehow, he's going to double that damage back to him for 10 black. That's really important to note. Is he good? Meh. I'd still rate him as meh, middle tier, because at the end of the day, his Pen and Stare requires you or your teammates to get hit a bunch in order to be really useful. It can turn the tide, it can win the game for you, but it's situational. So, middle to low tier at best, Iceman is a little better than Ghost Rider. I would probably rate him on the same level as Cyclops, actually. Cyclops being pretty high up there so far in our ratings. Iceman, because his blue, simply put, costs 6 blue, stun the target for 4 turns. That is literally the best part of this ability. The next part is while this blue countdown is out there that you make, he does 27k for another 6 blue. We're not here for that. I mean, it's nice, don't get me wrong, but 4 turn stun for 6 blue, that's beautiful. Let's talk about that all day. His purple feeds into it. 7 red into blue for 8 purple. So for 8 purple, 7 red tiles become blue. That's better than board shake because you're basically taking away red from the enemy team, potential red AP, and making more blue for yourself. And then it reduced the enemy red by 4 as well, so that's even better. His passive reduces damage from matches and abilities by 25% for all time displaced X-Men on the team. There's only a couple of them out there, but him and Jean Grey are 2 of them. You could put them together onto a team. That would be kind of fun, right? And then finally there's this green, which is good. Don't get me wrong, it's nice and damaging. It only costs 8 green. It does almost 7,000 damage to the enemy team. Plus damage for every blue tile on the board, up to 15. But let's be fair, when have you seen more than 15 blue tiles out there? Not often. Usually you have to have certain characters like, I don't know, Nightcrawler out there to make that happen. So really, that's a nice damaging power, but it's all about that blue for the stun, and this purple to back it up to make more. He's a really good character, and notice that we're not even talking about his damage. It's just the ability to keep someone stunned and locked down for so long. That's the reason he's rated so high. Iceman was a favorite of mine for so long. Green is no slouch either. It's true. Do you think... Wait, you said green did more before adjustments? But didn't it get lowered in price? I'm pretty sure it did more, and you're right, but I think it got lowered in price was what the whole point was. It got lowered in its cost, so that way obviously the power went down a little bit too. I think that's what happened. Anyways, not to. Yeah, it cost 12. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, yeah. So, you know, we dropped 4, you know. We dropped 4 AP, which honestly I think that's worth it in the end, because 4 is, I don't want to say it's easy to come across, but at the same time, that could take a couple more turns to gather. Anyways. 4-star Iron Man, the Hulkbuster. I would rate him almost as good as Cyclops. He can hit harder, but there's like a problem or two that comes with it. So, yeah, 12 was hard. You only one use per year. This is true, John. So 12 green would make it so like you're probably only going to see it once per match. This is true. So Iron Man Hulkbuster has his repulsor punch. Costs 9 red to use, but he depletes his entire team's red AP, dealing damage for each AP depleted. So if you have like 20, you're going to use all 20 AP, but you get that damage for every AP spent. So, you know, 20 times 2,755 is 27,550 damage. Pretty good for a 4-star character. So is it the best out there for 4-star land? No. I mean, we were talking about Cyclops moments ago, weren't we? And for 10 red plus 10 team up, he was doing nearly 50k. This guy right here, Hulkbuster, we were talking about 20 red, which is, you know, I'm not trying to make it sound the same, but 10 red and 10 team up, I'm talking about 20 red. It's the same amount of AP, right? So you're not doing 50k damage. Just putting it out there. Well, I mean, am I? Wait, 20. Am my math's off? My math is off. John, you're supposed to correct me on this. It's your fault. Anyways, 27k, that's for 10. For 20, it's like we're talking about 54,000. So yeah, actually, now I'm thinking about it. 54,000. Would I take 54,000 for 20 red over 50,000 for 10 red and 10 team up? Ooh, that's a tough one. I don't know. Let me come back to that. I'll give you a decision by the time I'm done with this Iron Man talk. His black costs 11, so that's even more pricey, and it deals damage to himself. But it gives you, like at level 5, gives you 9 red AP and gets 2 big old yellow strike tiles. So that's really handy. Even at level 3, you're still getting 6 red AP and getting some decent beefy strike tiles, but you still hit yourself for the same amount. But then there's his blue. His blue is good at 9 blue. You get to convert 7 green tiles to red and create 3 blue projectiles as well. I think in the end I would choose Cyclops over Iron Man Hulkbuster. Reason being is that Cyclops' red does a lot of damage. It's still not as much as Hulkbuster, and I get that, but at the same time, his yellow and his blue feed the red. Iron Man Hulkbuster has a black that feeds the red, but it also hurts himself to do so. And his blue can feed the red, but it does so at a higher cost. I need 9 blue to get these 7 basic changes. So, not quite as efficient. I think Cyclops probably does it just a little more efficiently, a little safer, doesn't hurt himself doing it. So I think I'd give the edge to Cyclops over Iron Man for this one. You turned the volume down. Did you miss something? I don't know. If you like hearing about Iron Man, then you might have. I don't know, man. I think at the end of the day, I basically rated Cyclops higher than Iron Man when it comes down to it. That's really what happened there. By a nudge, though. By just a small margin. 4-star Jean Grey. Oh, boy. That's a mixed bag. So her purple costs 10. Her green costs 12. And right there leaves me to say, oh, are we really going to use her? Because that's expensive right there. But they both hit the team. This converts 6 random enemy special tiles to basics and deals damage to enemy team. A good amount of damage, too. The green hits for a little less, which is surprisingly since seeing it costs more. But you also get 4 random strike attack projectiles created as well. So, I mean, that's nice-ish. Switch devices, Psych Overhaul Closer. This is true. And then Psychic Feedback. This is the main reason some people would actually like to use her more, but you can't control it. When the opponent makes a match 5, Jean reduces the AP in their strongest color by 3, 4, or 6, depending on what level we're talking about here. Stun the enemy team for 2 turns. That's the major point. And deal damage to the enemy team. It's basically a free stun for 2 turns, but the enemy team has to make a match 5 or better. Now, you know the enemies don't make... The CPU doesn't make a match 5 unless it's lined up. It has to be so ready for them. And that's the problem here. You basically have to use like combos that would put it all together for you and lay it out and then purposely not match those match 5s yourself to really get good use out of this. And believe you me, I've tried. I've tried using Domino and Cloak and Dagger and other characters like that to set up match 5s and then leave it alone to see if I can have Jean Grey abuse this turn after turn after turn. It doesn't work that way. It does not fall into place like that often at all. And I was really hoping it would, because that would be a fun, like, you know, easy loop. And 1 turn of the sun is the extra turn from the match 5. Yeah, you really only get 1 free turn if we're being honest with ourselves about it, because they're making the match and it's their match. So then it goes immediately to you afterwards, and then they get the turn of stun, and then it comes back to you again, and then it's their turn. So it's 2 turns, but it's only 2 turns because they needed to give you like a free turn to make it feel worthwhile. Anyways, I would rate Jean Grey probably middle tier, because it is both her purple and green are team hitters, and they're both pretty nice and usable. They're damaging. Her blue is threatening, but in the end she's a little pricey, and that blue, as threatening as it is, it's only situational. So sorry, Jean. Not as cool as Cyclops for this case. Kingpin. Ugh, poor Kingpin. He's definitely low tier. Let me tell you why. One of my favorite abilities of his is Magia Pawns, and it's only because I like the amount of variety that gets created here. It's 10 yellow. It's a little pricey. But 3 yellow Magia Thugs, 2 blue Magia Muscles, and 2 black Magia Hitman countdown tiles. That's 7 countdowns you get. You get 7 countdown tiles for 10 yellow, and they're all pretty decently strong. If they go off, you got some good stuff here. Unfortunately, those countdown tiles last 2, 3, and 4 turns. You're going to wait a while. You're going to spend 10 yellow, then wait a while. And by the way, they're not fortified. So, and that's sad. It's like one of my favorite abilities of his, and it's really actually not good. This is more of a reason to talk about Kingpin Wilson Fisk, though, if I'm being honest, and it's his Fisk defense. For 8 purple, you make 8 yellow. You reduce AP and enemy strongest by 6 and make 8 yellow. Nowhere in MPQ could you find a trade for yellow that easily than Wilson Fisk. 4-star Wilson Fisk has the best purple to yellow exchange rate there is. It's not easy to make yellow AP out of a lot of characters, but Wilson Fisk can do it for you for a nice 8 purple. So if you need a yellow to purple conversion, here he is. I'm sorry, a purple to yellow conversion. My bad. Anyways, finally, there's probably what is his worst ability, and yet this is the one that got changed the most, is the Gambit. Even if I bump it up, let's say, okay? Removes a random friendly countdown tile and deals damage. And that's pretty good damage. If there's 3 or more friendly countdown tiles, removes 3 of them and deals less damage, but to the enemy team. Why this is so bad is that it will not fire without a countdown. You have to have a friendly countdown out there for this to fire, which means you have to either cast your yellow already or have someone like Scarlet Witch or someone else who makes a countdown pretty frequently to use this ability. But then you're losing out on what that ability is. So that countdown's pointless because you're using it for gambits. And that's a shame. It used to be where you could fire this without it way long ago, and it did, I don't know, less or something. I forget exactly how it worked back then, but it was, his whole package was a little more user-friendly way back when. And it's like they changed it because now he works better with thugs and goons. So, sorry, Kingpin, you're very, very low tier. But I do note that you have usability and utility when needed. Miles Morales, one of the first 4-star Spidey characters, and he's still one of the best ones. We're going to start with power and responsibility because that's the whole reason he's amazing. His passive states, whenever a red web tile is matched, gain 1 purple, 1 red, and 1 blue. That is at level 5. You bring it down to 4, you're getting a purple and a red. Put it down to 3, you're getting just a purple. I would have it at least at 4 because he himself uses purple and red. Put up to 5 if you want to get tricky, because a lot of his spider brethren, like Peter Parker or Spider-Man 2099 or Silk, you get the point, they all use blue AP, so you'd be helping your team out by having it up to 5. Hide and seek, by the way, yellow actively makes webs by just casting it, but that's not the main reason we use yellow, let's be honest. His purple, hide and seek, for 6 purple makes 5 web tiles. That right there is a great rate. You can't knock that. And it also makes him invisible, but once he's invisible, it turns into surprise. Now it costs 8 purple, but now you deal damage, plus more damage for every web on the board. It removes your hide and seek tile, it goes back, it removes the hide and seek tile, and then it goes back to being hide and seek. That's a lot of damage, and I want you to note that there's no cap on that damage. If there are 64 web tiles out there, it will take that damage into account. That 3,721 will be for every web tile, no matter what. Miles Morales, when invisible, can be a beast and can single-handedly do a lot of things. Don't underestimate him. That is for darn sure. Venom Blast is okay. 6 red. Even if I pump it up, right? It does okay damage. 13,000 is not a small amount. And it stuns the target for 1 turn. So, at least, if he's the only web user on your team, at least you're feeding your own red with his yellow, that passive, AP generation, to do 1 turn stuns when necessary. Oh, John, I'm sorry, I missed that. He had a user-friendly package? Yeah. God, 4-star Kingpin. God. When was this changed? It changed like 4 years ago or something like that. I'm kind of like, I'm spitballing it here. But it was a long time ago. And he had a package where it was like, I don't know, useful to an extent. It wasn't like meta. It wasn't good, but it was like okay, that's Wilson Fisk. And then they announced a change for him. And that change happened, and everyone was like, why'd you do that? Now he's useless. So, Mr. Fantastic. Now, remember everything I was talking about with Carnage earlier and his ability to make tiles, okay? Phrase. Oh, I'm sorry, John. I missed the phrasing moment. I'm rushing too fast. Mr. Fantastic over here is, well, pretty fantastic. Yuck. I'm going to start with his worst ability because the other two play into each other pretty decently. But even then, there's some play here if you look at it right. Imagine Not is a 10 black that creates a fortified repeater and only goes off when it's level 5. It has a 2-turn effect. Level 3 is only a 3-turn effect. But when it goes off, it does a random thing. And that's probably the worst thing about it, is it could create strikes, create protects, create attacks, create charge tiles, generate your strongest color AP, and or locking basic tiles. It's a lot of things it could do, and unfortunately, since it's so random, you can't rely on it, and that's why I have it down to level 3. It's not fun at all because of that. So moving on from there. His yellow, Master of the Fantastic, which is super fun to me, especially when you want to abuse it with Carnage. Oh boy. So, whenever you match an enemy special tile, remember, Carnage is making 3 enemy special tiles a turn, you give your most damaged ally a burst of health. If it's the 4th enemy special tile you've matched this battle, fire a random friendly power at no cost and reset the counter. So this is one of those times that, like, let's say you have Carnage and Mr. Fantastic on a team together, and then you put someone with high cost abilities, like, I don't know, Jean Grey. And then you just keep trying to match those enemy tiles that Carnage is putting out there. And all of a sudden you're getting free abilities being cast. Now you can't choose which ones are being cast. You could get a free Imaginaut being cast, which is kind of, I mean, at least it's out there, but man, you could have done better. Carnage could do his red for free, which can be good or bad, depending on what we're looking at here. But it could also cast Jean Grey's green or Jean Grey's purple for free. And those are pretty strong and very useful. So, yeah, you could definitely abuse this Master of the Fantastic by constantly matching enemy tiles that Carnage is generating for you. Flexibility is more fun on top of it, because for 8 blue, you stun the target for 3 turns, then you deal damage for every 4 friendly special tiles on the board. Again, I point to Carnage. He's putting 3 friendly attack tiles out every turn. This is not going to be long before this is heavily in your favor, and then you're using Master of the Fantastic and flexibility hand in hand. It's not uncommon. Once upon a time, back in 4-star land, Mr. Fantastic, Carnage, and Medusa were a really fun pair, because Medusa is sitting there healing and giving you AP as well. She can generate blue AP for you, green AP for Carnage, and purple AP for Medusa. And it was super fun to run all day long. In this capacity, for Class 2015, Mr. Fantastic and Carnage can do plenty on their own. I would rate Mr. Fantastic probably just like a high middle tier because of that, but that's only because of his utility factor. His utility is super good. I wouldn't use him without the right characters. Put him together with Ant-Man, put him together with Carnage, put him together with Ghost Rider, someone that has special tiles constantly coming out. If you don't, then there's no reason to use Mr. Fantastic, and why are you there? So, as long as you're using him right, I think he's super good. Professor X is another one of those characters that, much like Miles Morales, could totally run a whole team off the map and not care. He has an invisibility move, one of the earlier ones in the game, Blind Spot. 7 purple makes an invisibility tile, and if he makes a match while it's present, he strengthens 4 friendly special tiles by a lot. He's invisible, and he strengthens your tiles. On top of that, his Psychic Convergence says, hey, whenever an ally fires a power, not himself, he can't cast it off himself, it has to be one of his allies, okay? It converts a random basic tile to a protect tile. Pump this up now, all of a sudden it's making a protect tile, an attack tile, and a strike tile. That's really good. Put it in there with someone that has cheap abilities, so they're all of a sudden now you're making tiles super cheap, okay? Put Professor X invisible. He makes matches, and all of a sudden he's strengthening those tiles that you're making. Very, 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 very useful. Master Plan is a little more situational, but you can make this work, especially when you have 3-star characters like, 3-star Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, helping out with you. Whenever Professor X's team makes a match 5 or greater, generate 4 AP in your strongest color and deal a bunch of damage. This is a passive. Just want to point out, that's a passive. You're passively doing 18,000 damage and generating 4 more AP, all because you made a match 5. Think of all the ways that you can make a match 5. Simple, right? We just talked about how Iron Man could turn greens to reds. That's an easy way to do it. Or Cyclops can get rid of reds in an area. Or you know how Kamala Khan can turn any of a certain color into green. Or, you get my point so far? There's a lot of board shake potential here. As long as you abuse it right, you could be doing passive damage, generating AP as you go. With an invisibility sidekick built in here, he's actually a pretty awesome character to play with. I would not sleep on Professor X. As for rating wise, once again, he's the sort of character that kind of needs people to play off of. I mean, his passives need him to have allies to cast powers. I'd rate him probably like mid-tier because of that. If he goes invisible, obviously he can solo, but even then he's not making tiles without friends to do it. So I'd rate him like mid-tier. At least Mr. Fantastic can do some of this stuff based on his own Imaginaut tile, and his blue stuns can make things work. Professor X kind of needs friends. Red Hulk. Wow. Once upon a time, Red Hulk was kind of a nuisance. Today, not so much, but still, there's utilities for him. Remember we were talking about Deadpool and he has those one-turn countdowns because you hurt his friends so much? Well, Red Hulk has something similar. If he himself, though, gets damaged for so much damage, which is, albeit a small amount, he creates a one-turn red countdown tile, which destroys up to 6 random basic tiles. That's all it does. Obviously, you do the damage for those tiles, and the board shit comes with it. That's the real reason to use him. Is this? Well, I shouldn't say that. That's not fair. There's kind of a couple reasons to use him, but I like using him for this alone because making one-turn countdowns can once again trigger Captain Marvel or Drax or Hawkeye or Coulson, and you get the point. You can trigger a lot of friendly passive abilities that rely on countdown tiles expiring. His purple, I'll skip down here to Gamma Siphon, drain all the enemy's green and then generate 7 green for the friendly team. Once again, this is a purple that gets rid of all the enemy green and then you make 7 green. The enemy doesn't have to have green for this to work, by the way. If the enemy has 0 green, you still get 7 green for it. It's like a nice swap. You basically 7 purple for 7 green, and by the way, the enemy also loses all their green. Get out of here. Very nice when you consider his green is Hammer and Anvil. For 9 green, you do like 11,000 damage to the enemy team. That's okay. If you get 18 or more green AP, it does 29,000 to the enemy team. It drains all of it, to be quite fair, at 18 plus, but still, that's a lot of damage to the enemy team, especially noting that you can create green with your purple. Unfortunately, with these things, there's a lot of requirement. I mean, the green is a decent cost at 9, even more so at 18. The purple is pretty awesome utility. The red isn't that good without teammates to abuse it, to be quite fair. I'd rate him like a mid-tier because of that. He's annoying to play against in some capacity, but he's not that bad at the end of the day. You can definitely make use of his antics one way or another, whether with or against him. 4-star Sam Wilson's probably one of the lowest 4-star characters out here. I know Wilson Fisk is pretty low. I just realized they both have the name Wilson. Wilson Fisk and Sam Wilson. And the Wilsons are not good. Just realized that. That's crazy. Yeah, if your name is Wilson, you just don't. No. Very low tier. Let's start with one of his best ones, the Aerial Avenger. When you make a blue match, you can strengthen up to 2 friendly strike attack projectiles by a decent amount. It is passive after all. And reduce the timer for friendly countdown by 1. That's not bad for getting your countdowns rolling, but it happens when you make a blue match. Remember that there's 7 different colors out there on the board. We're including team up, right? So 1 out of 7 matches is going to help you get these bonuses. Obviously, you can gun for it and try to make blues and match them as you wish, but still, at the end of the day, you can only get this boost when you match a blue. His yellow makes a bunch of projectiles for 9, and then when I say a bunch, I mean all basic yellow tiles turn into yellow projectiles. It's very good for obviously avoiding damage and whatnot, but it's more important for his red, the dive bomb. For 14, a super expensive cost for red, all of a sudden you can deal 31,000 plus 4,700 damage for every friendly projectile on the board. That is a lot of damage. To be fair, his red will down someone. It is super strong, especially after that yellow's cast. But it's 14 red. Let's just face facts. By the time you get 14 red, the game's probably almost over. It's because of the fact that he just deals with projectiles, a passive that only works very seldomly, and a red that costs so much. I would rate him very, very low tier. I think Wilson Fisk is actually better. Ooh, man, Sam, you just fell way far down. Star-Lord. Star-Lord's fun, but again, situational. And here's why. His yellow, it makes a... whenever the enemy uses a power, he gets a countdown up there. And that countdown... Okay, I'm at level 5 right now, okay? His countdown reduced the cost of all friendly red, yellow, blue, green, and purple powers down by 2. To a minimum of 3. When the tile expires, you get 3 random colored AP. So that's very handy when you have other characters that have expensive powers. You're trying to bring them like down to a normal, normalcy. Or what if you have cheap character powers, like I don't know, like Miles Morales with his 6 purple, now it costs 4. Or if his power and responsibility, his yellow, it costs 8, now it only costs 6. Certain characters with cheap powers get super cheap, and you could spam them a lot more often. These countdowns also come into play with his red and his purple. Let's look at the red first. For 8 red, or 6 if you have that countdown out, right? He deals 10,000 damage plus additional damage per friendly countdown tile. Up to only 6, though. This is one of the first characters to have a cap like that. It's still a lot of damage when you think about all the countdowns he can help you make because the enemy's casting powers. So you could definitely get away with that. Obviously, this works really well with, like, if you say, for example, 4-star Deadpool, because he can make, like, what was it, 6 countdown tiles with his purple. That's a lot of stuff you could do here. So, moving on. Sleight of Hand, which is pretty good, but it's a little expensive. It's probably his least important ability, but it's only because of the cost. It's 10 purple. You turn selected color tiles into 3-turn countdowns, which deal damage to the enemy team, plus additional damage to the target, and it's not bad. Here, let's crank it up for you here. The countdowns turn to 2-turn countdowns. You can swap 3 tiles for it, and you deal more damage. Really the only reason to use Sleight of Hand is you're buffing up his oldest trick in the book because you're putting down extra countdowns. At the end of the day, I'd say Star-Lord's kind of like mid-tier because the fact that he's a really good team player for his Everyone With Me. That Everyone With Me really helps make everyone's stuff cheaper, not just his own stuff, and hence you can really abuse certain things. Let's go on. After Star-Lord, we got Amadeus Cho, or the Totally Awesome Hulk. This is another mid-tier character, I'd say. He's got his uses. I definitely don't want to like sell him short, but I generally put his green at full. I actually don't know why I have this here. I think I may have been doing this for like an experiment of mine, but his green costs 13 and deals a pretty decent amount of damage for it. 36k is nothing to laugh at. And you destroy a chosen, selected 3x3 block of tiles. If you got at least 12 blue AP, you deal 26,000 more damage. That's a lot of damage all in one ability. Otherwise, destroy 7 randoms. I gotta speed this up, guys. I'm almost out of time. This blue passive, it's a 2-turn countdown at level 5, and it makes 4 random green tiles on the board. It also deals damage, so every 2 turns, well, maybe 3 turns because you got to make the tile, but still, you're getting damage and green tiles out there. It's good for that. Hot Dog Stand costs 7, heals himself, converts up to 6 blue or green tiles into charge tiles. Probably his least important ability by far. I definitely keep green up high and blue up high. At the end of the day, though, mid-tier because green does cost a lot. Blue, you have to wait for the outcome to actually get anything out of it. But it is a nice green feeder if you need one. Thing, despite being featured in the Welcome to S.H.I.E.L.D. fights, he isn't that great, but let's highlight what's really good about him. First, his yellow rock solid. If an ally takes 5,000 more damage, and they have less health than Thing. Thing jumps to the front, creates some big old projectiles, and then good luck getting through them. Meanwhile, his red, which costs 10, deals a decent amount of damage and stuns for 2 turns. It's a red that does that. And 1 second here, guys. I have one more thing to do. 1 second here. Sorry about that. Shoot, I gotta learn how to use some of these things that I got here. I got these abilities to run a 1-minute ad break, and I forgot how. Here, one more thing. Okay, I promise next time I'll learn how to use that ability. But anyways, and then the NC Street Special deals a nice chunk of damage, destroying a random block of things for 12 green. It's okay. I wouldn't rely on it. I have it up high. I forget why. I think we were making a lot of green tiles in one fight and we decided to use it, but moving on. I would put the thing down at like a low mid tier because his passive, as good as it is, it's situational at best. So a red stun is nice to have, but again, if I'm going to get red AP, Cyclops or Hulkbuster is where it's at. So sorry I'm talking lower, but I'm trying to move it along pretty fast here now. So 2 more to go. Eddie Brock Venom. I'd definitely rate him higher because of, I'd probably like a high mid tier, and the reason is his lethal protector. For his passive says whenever an enemy is damaged for so much more health, you create a big ol' enemy projectile, and that's big because along with that, there's different abilities out there that are actually based on enemy tiles being on the board. Mr. Fantastic, for example, remember when he matches enemy tiles, he can do. He can use free abilities. That's kind of a big deal. So that's something to abuse with him. Give and take also goes right hand in hand with it. At level 5, enemy projectile strings are reduced to 1. So in other words, the enemy projectiles mean nothing. His matches deal 75% more damage as well, so he's kind of like a tank. But of course, red and blue matches deal more damage to you. I think it's to represent his like weaknesses to like sonic attacks and whatnot, and to fire. But that's just flavor, really. Symbiotic Fury is good. It's actually pretty strong if you buff it up, but the other two abilities are too good to pass up. It just does damage and then costs less if there's enemy strike attack or protects out there on the field. I would rank his black and his yellow to 5 every chance you get and run them like that. Obviously go with Mr. Fantastic and Carnage. You want to run them like that for 4-star fun. Like I said, middle high tier, I should say. Finally, X-23. X-23's Savage Healing alone makes her pretty notable. I'd say she's at least mid-tier because when you make a green, red, or purple match and she has to be the one to make it, she gets a lot of health back. That's passive. That's crazy good. On her green is very lackluster, even though it got, it's for 8 green you deal some damage, but you have to have 9 or more red to get the ability to change into Berserker Fury, which is actually better and creates strike tiles as well. So really, after 16 green and having 9 red in your back pocket is when you get your full potential. It's kind of silly. Tracking prey is 12 purple, does a ton of damage on a purple trap tile if it's matched by the enemy. But if you match it, it still does a pretty good amount of damage and creates a black strike tile for you. Costs 1 less for every friendly strike on the board. Good when you team her up with people that make strikes, like Dakin, or Wolverine. Okay. At the end of the day, though, because she has these requirements for using her green and purple efficiently, I'd only rate her like mid-tier, but she's a good tank for that healing. It's such a good regen, it's kind of hard to put her down sometimes. And that is the class of 2015. My top people for 4-star land in this class would easily be Cyclops, probably Carnage for how useful his ability is, and like Miles or Professor X for their invisibility factor. This isn't talking about team play. Obviously, if you would make it a team with each other, just 4 stars alone, I'm looking at Mr. Fantastic, Eddie Brock, and Carnage all together, because that would be super fun. But that's if we're not talking 5 stars. So this is just ideas that I'm spouting off to you guys. But I gotta get going. If you couldn't tell already by my pauses I've taken and my reduced volume, I got things to do. So I'm gonna catch y'all later. I will talk to you soon. Thank you very much for watching, and thanks for joining me, John. I appreciate it. I'll catch you guys next time. Later.